Sometimes the words that destroy us come from the people we love most. In my case, it was the 3 seconds it took my 17-year-old daughter Emma to say, "You ruin everything, Mom," that turned our normal Tuesday dinner into the moment that changed both our lives forever. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary until Emma slammed her fork down with such force that the water glasses trembled. The sound echoed through our kitchen like a gunshot. She stared at me with eyes I didn't recognize, cold, calculating, almost predatory. I knew something fundamental had shifted between us, but I didn't know that those 3 words would lead to a revelation that would expose 20 years of lies and force me to make the most dangerous decision of my life. Let me tell you about the people in this story, because understanding them is crucial to understanding how everything unraveled so catastrophically. Emma is 17, brilliant with a 4.2 gigapascals, but consumed by a rage she's carried since she was 12. That anger isn't just teenage rebellion, it's the symptom of a secret that's been poisoning our family for years. My husband David is 45, a respected pediatric surgeon, but obsessed with maintaining his perfect image at any cost. That obsession has led him to make choices that would horrify anyone who knew the truth. And then there's me, Sarah, 43, a former investigative journalist who gave up her career to raise Emma. I thought I was protecting my family by walking away from the stories that could have destroyed lives. I had no idea that the biggest story of my career was happening right under my own roof. It started with Emma's college applications. We were sitting around our dining table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of family meals, when I mentioned that her essay about overcoming adversity was beautifully written but might need to be more specific. "Maybe you could write about how you dealt with your anxiety in middle school," I suggested, trying to be helpful. That's when Emma's face changed. The transformation was instant and terrifying, like watching a mask slip off to reveal something ugly underneath. "My anxiety?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean the anxiety you caused?" David looked up from his phone, finally sensing the tension. "Emma, don't talk to your mother that way." But Emma wasn't done. She stood up slowly, deliberately, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "No, Dad. I think it's time we talked about what Mom really did." My blood turned to ice. "Emma, what are you talking about?" She smiled then, a cold, adult smile that had no place on my teenager's face. "I know about Michael Patterson." Before I tell you what happened next and how that name changed everything, please subscribe and comment what you think Emma discovered about Michael Patterson, because the truth is more twisted than you could imagine. Let's continue. Michael Patterson. I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in our house for 5 years, but it had been living in the shadows of our family like a cancer. 12 years ago, when I was still working as an investigative journalist for the Chicago Tribune, I broke the story that sent Michael Patterson to prison. He was a high school teacher who had been systematically grooming and abusing students for years. My investigation led to his conviction and a 25-year sentence. What I never told anyone, not my editor, not the police, not even David, was that Michael Patterson had threatened my family before his arrest. He knew where we lived. He knew Emma's school. He knew our routine. The day before his sentencing, he called me from jail. "Your little girl is beautiful, Sarah," he said, his voice calm and conversational. "Emma, right? Blonde hair? Blue eyes? She looks just like my type." I hung up, but the message was clear. Even from prison, he had reach. Even from prison, he could hurt us. So I made a choice that I thought would protect my family. I stopped investigating dangerous people. I took a desk job writing fluff pieces about local businesses. I became the mother I thought Emma needed instead of the journalist I was born to be. But now, sitting at our dinner table, watching my daughter's face twist with an anger I finally understood, I realized that Michael Patterson had won anyway. "You want to know about my anxiety, Mom?" Emma's voice was steady now, deadly calm. "It started when I was 12, and I figured out that you stopped being a real journalist because of me. That's not, don't lie. She pulled out her phone and started reading from the screen. Michael Patterson, convicted child predator, serving 25 years at Stateville Correctional Center. Released on early parole 3 months ago for good behavior. The room spun. David's face went white. I felt like I was drowning. Emma, how do you know all this? She laughed bitterly. I've been tracking him since I was 14, Mom. Every appeal, every parole hearing, every time his case came up for review. I've been preparing for this day while you've been hiding. David stood up abruptly. We need to call the police. Sit down, Dad. Emma's voice cut through the room like a blade. Because there's more. She swiped to another screen on her phone. Michael Patterson was released to a halfway house in Naperville. That's 20 minutes from here. And according to his social media, because apparently child predators get to have social media now, he's been watching us. She held up the phone. On the screen was a Facebook post from 3 days ago. A photo of our house. Our car in the driveway. Emma walking to her car, unaware she was being photographed. The caption read, "Sometimes the best stories have sequels." The room erupted. David was on his phone with 911. I was trying to process how our 17-year-old daughter had been carrying this burden alone for years. And Emma was still standing there, radiating a fury that suddenly made perfect sense. You want to know why I said you ruin everything? She continued, her voice rising. Because you do. You had a gift, Mom. You could have kept investigating these monsters. You could have put more of them away. But instead, you decided to protect me by destroying the very thing that made you who you are. I was trying to keep you safe. Safe? Emma slammed her hand on the table. You think I was safe knowing that you sacrificed your calling because of me? You think I was safe carrying the weight of knowing that every predator who didn't get caught because you stopped investigating was partially my fault? The words hit me like physical blows. Emma, that's not how it works. Isn't it? She pulled out another phone. One I'd never seen before. Because while you've been writing puff pieces about coffee shops, I've been doing the work you abandoned. The phone in Emma's hand wasn't her regular iPhone. It was an older Android, beat up and obviously well used. For 3 years, she said quietly, I've been catfishing predators online, finding them, documenting them, turning evidence over to the police. David stopped talking to the 911 operator and stared at our daughter. Emma, that's incredibly dangerous. So is letting them roam free while the one person who could stop them writes restaurant reviews instead. Her eyes never left mine. Do you want to know how many men I've helped put away in the last 3 years, Mom? I couldn't speak. 14. 14 men who were grooming children online. 14 men who are now facing charges because I did what you were too scared to do. The phone in her hand buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. What is it? David demanded. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. He's here. Through our front window, we could see a figure standing on the sidewalk across the street. Even in the gathering dusk, I recognized the silhouette immediately. Michael Patterson looked exactly the same as he had 12 years ago. Tall, lean, with the kind of forgettable face that made him perfect for his crimes. He wasn't hiding. He was just standing there, watching our house, knowing we could see him. David was still on with 911, but I could hear the frustration in his voice. What do you mean? How do you know he's not supposed to be here? He's a registered sex offender standing outside our house. Mom, Emma said quietly, there's something else. I tore my gaze away from the window. What? She held up the burner phone. He's been texting me. The world tilted. What? For 2 weeks, ever since he got out. He knows about what I've been doing. He knows I've been catching predators. She showed me the screen. Message after message from an unknown number. Impressive work, Emma. You learned from the best. Your mother cost me 12 years. You've cost my friends their freedom. Time to settle accounts. You? Want to play investigator? Let's play. Emma, why didn't you tell us? David's voice was strained. Because I had a plan. She walked to our front closet and pulled out a small recording device and what looked like a tiny camera. He wants to play games? Fine. But this time, we're going to end this permanently. Absolutely not, I said immediately. We're not using you as bait. Emma turned to face me, and in that moment, I saw myself as I used to be, determined, fearless, willing to do whatever it took to stop the monsters. Mom, for 3 years, I've been becoming the journalist you stopped being. I've learned everything there is to know about how these predators operate, how they think, how they justify their crimes. I know more about Michael Patterson than the FBI does. She gestured toward the window where Patterson still stood, a shadow against the streetlights. He's not here to hurt me, not yet. He's here to hurt you by taking away what you love most. But he doesn't know that what you love most isn't the helpless little girl he thinks I am. Emma? No, Mom, listen. She grabbed my shoulders. He's been watching us for weeks. He knows Dad's surgery schedule. He knows when I'm at school. He knows when you're alone. If we don't end this tonight, he'll just keep escalating until someone gets hurt. David finished with 911 and hung up, his face grim. Police are on their way, but they can't arrest him for standing on a public sidewalk, unless he makes a direct threat or actually trespasses. Then we make him cross that line, Emma said simply. I stared at my daughter, this fierce, brilliant young woman who had been fighting monsters while I wrote about restaurant openings, and realized that she was right. We couldn't just wait for Patterson to make his move. We couldn't live in fear, watching over our shoulders, wondering when he would decide to act. But more than that, I realized that Emma was offering me a chance to be who I really was again, the journalist, the investigator. The woman who had dedicated her life to stopping people like Michael Patterson. What's your plan? I asked. Emma smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all evening. We invite him in. While David kept watch at the window and the police were en route, Emma explained her plan. It was brilliant in its simplicity and terrifying in its risks. She had been corresponding with Patterson for 2 weeks, letting him think he was grooming her, letting him believe he had found the perfect way to torment me. Every text, every call was being recorded on devices she had purchased with money from her part-time job. But it's not enough for a conviction, she explained as she showed me the elaborate recording setup she had hidden throughout our house. He's been careful. Everything he's said could be interpreted as just talking to a teenager. We need him to clearly state his intent to commit a crime. And how do we do that? Emma held up a printed email. We invite him in for coffee and conversation. Mother to daughter's friend. I told him you wanted to apologize for ruining his life. My stomach churned. Emma, the risk is calculated, she finished. Look, Mom, I've spent 3 years learning how these predators think. Patterson's ego is his weakness. He wants to gloat. He wants to tell you exactly how clever he's been, how he's outsmarted the system, how he's going to make you pay. She pointed to tiny cameras hidden in our living room. We get him talking about his plans. We get him admitting what he wants to do to me, to you, to our family. And then we end this forever. David was shaking his head. This is insane. We should just wait for the police. The police can't do anything until he actually commits a crime, Emma said patiently. And by then, it might be too late. This way, we control the situation. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She wasn't the helpless child I had been trying to protect for years. She was a warrior. She was me, but better. Okay, I said quietly, but we do this my way. At 8:47 p.m., Emma sent the text. My mom wants to talk to you. She says she owes you an apology. Can you come to the house? She's alone. The response came immediately. I'll be right there. David was positioned upstairs with his phone, ready to call 911 the moment things went wrong. Emma and I sat in our living room, both wired for sound, both terrified and determined. Remember, Emma whispered. Let him talk. Let his ego do the work. The doorbell rang at exactly 9 p.m. I opened the door to find Michael Patterson smiling at me, with the same charming expression I remembered from his teaching photos. He looked harmless, a middle-aged man in khakis and a polo shirt who could have been anyone's neighbor. "Sarah," he said warmly, as if we were old friends. "It's been a long time. Michael, thank you for coming." He stepped into our house, and I saw him glance around, taking in every detail, every possible escape route, every advantage. "Beautiful home," he said, "very family-oriented." Emma appeared from the kitchen, and Patterson's entire demeanor shifted. His smile became predatory. "And this must be Emma. My goodness, you've grown up beautifully." For the next 20 minutes, Michael Patterson proceeded to destroy himself with his own words. He sat in our living room, drinking coffee I had made, and told us exactly what he planned to do. Not because he was stupid, because his ego demanded that we understand how clever he was. "You know, Sarah, you cost me 12 years of my life, 12 years in a cage with actual criminals." He laughed softly. "But prison taught me patience. It taught me how to plan. I was just doing my job, Michael. Oh, I know. The crusading journalist, protecting the innocent children." His eyes flicked to Emma. "But children grow up, don't they? And sometimes they become so much more interesting." Emma played her part perfectly, acting nervous but curious, asking innocent questions that led Patterson to reveal more and more of his intentions. "The thing about your generation, Emma," he said, leaning forward, "is that you think you're so smart with your technology, but technology can be turned against you. I know everywhere you go, every website you visit, every person you talk to." He pulled out his phone and showed us photos. Emma at school, Emma at work, Emma with friends. "I even know about your little hobby." His smile turned cold. "Catfishing predators? Very impressive, very dangerous, very stupid." "What do you mean?" Emma asked, her voice perfectly pitched with teenage confusion. "I mean," Patterson said, his mask finally dropping completely, "that you've been playing a game you don't understand with people you can't handle. And now it's time for you to learn what happens to little girls who think they're smarter than they really are." Patterson stood up and walked to our window, looking out at the street. "The police aren't coming, by the way. I mean, they might eventually, but I have friends who monitor emergency calls. We have at least 30 minutes before anyone shows up." He turned back to us, and for the first time I saw the real Michael Patterson. Not the charming teacher or the patient predator, but the monster underneath. 30 minutes is more than enough time to teach you both some very important lessons about consequences. That's when Emma made her move. "You're right about one thing, Michael," she said, standing up slowly. "I have been playing a game I don't understand." His eyes lit up with anticipation. "But the game I've been playing isn't catfishing predators," she continued. "The game I've been playing is getting you to confess to stalking, harassment, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping and assault." Patterson's face went blank. "What?" Emma held up her phone. "Every text you sent me, every threat, every photo you took without permission, and now everything you just said in this room, all recorded, all legally admissible." "You're bluffing." That's when I stood up, pulling out my own recording device. "She's not, and neither am I." "You see, Michael," I said, walking closer to him, "you made one crucial mistake. You assumed that I stopped being an investigative journalist because I was scared." His confidence was cracking. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, trying to figure out where his perfect plan had gone wrong. The truth is, I never stopped investigating. I just got more selective about my targets. I gestured to Emma. "And I got a very talented partner." Emma smiled that cold smile again. "For 3 years, I've been learning how to catch predators. But for the last 6 months, ever since we heard about your parole hearing, I've been learning how to catch one specific predator. You." Patterson's eyes darted toward the door. "I wouldn't," David said, appearing at the top of the stairs with his phone in his hand. "I've been live streaming this entire conversation to the FBI's tip line. Agent Morrison says hello, by the way. Remember her? She's been waiting 12 years for you to slip up." The look on Michael Patterson's face when he realized he had been completely outplayed was something I will never forget. 12 years of planning, months of stalking, weeks of psychological torture, all undone by his own need to gloat. "You can't use any of this," he said desperately. "I didn't consent to being recorded." Emma laughed. "Actually, under Illinois law, only one party needs to consent to recording. And since this is our house, and you're threatening our safety, we're well within our rights." The police arrived exactly 28 minutes after Patterson had entered our house. By then, we had enough evidence to ensure he would never see freedom again. As they led him away in handcuffs, he turned back to me one last time. "This isn't over, Sarah." "Yes," I said quietly, "it is." The trial lasted 3 days. Michael Patterson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The evidence Emma and I had gathered was so comprehensive that his lawyer advised him to plead guilty. But the real victory wasn't the sentence. The real victory was what happened after. 2 weeks after Patterson's sentencing, I walked into the office of the Chicago Tribune and asked for my old job back. "I hear you've been writing restaurant reviews," my former editor said with a grin. "I've been preparing," I corrected her. Emma was accepted to Northwestern's journalism program with a full scholarship. Her essay about learning to become an investigative journalist by working with her mother made several professors cry. But more than that, we had become partners, real partners. The kind of team that could take down monsters without becoming monsters ourselves. In the 6 months since Patterson's conviction, Emma and I have worked together on 4 major investigations. We've exposed 2 more predator rings, helped shut down a human trafficking operation, and assisted law enforcement in 3 other states. Emma still does her high school work, but now she does it in the newsroom. She still catches predators online, but now she does it with FBI oversight and proper legal protection. And me? I'm doing what I was born to do again. But this time, I'm not doing it alone. That night at our dinner table, when Emma said, "You ruin everything," she was right. I had been ruining everything, my career, my purpose, my daughter's respect, and our family's safety, all in the name of protection. But sometimes, when everything gets ruined, you get the chance to rebuild it better. Sometimes, the people we think we're protecting are actually the ones who can save us. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is try to shield the people you love from becoming who they're meant to be. Emma never needed my protection. What she needed was my partnership. Michael Patterson spent 12 years in prison planning his revenge against the woman who destroyed his life. What he didn't know was that woman was raising a daughter who would become his worst nightmare. The student had become the teacher. The protected had become the protector. And the predator had become the prey. If you've made it this far, please subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever discovered that someone you were trying to protect was actually stronger than you realized? Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is trust the people we love to be who they really are. The last thing I'll leave you with is this. Emma still keeps that burner phone. Not because she needs it, but because it reminds her that monsters are real, but so are the people brave enough to hunt them. And now we hunt together. The end.